They didn't notice at first. A slight change in water pressure, a strange aftertaste, something metallic, almost bitter. But as the days passed, the complaints grew. The water had an odd color, darker than usual. It smelled off. Some thought it was just old pipes. Others weren't so sure. And then, the discovery. A maintenance worker climbed the rusted ladder to the rooftop, pushed open the hatch of the hotel's main water tank, and looked inside. At first it seemed empty, but as his eyes adjusted, he saw it, pale, motionless, floating just beneath the surface. A body. Eleanor Fay, 23 years old. A traveler passing through the city. An artist. A daughter. A sister. A young woman who had checked into the Blackwood Hotel less than a week before. Now she was dead. But the questions didn't end there. They only got worse. The rooftop was locked. The water tank was heavy, its lid nearly impossible to lift from the inside. No signs of a struggle, no obvious injuries, no reason why she should have been there at all. And then there was the footage. The last time Eleanor was seen alive, she was inside the hotel's elevator. The security camera recorded everything. The doors opened. She stepped in, alone. She pressed a button, then another, then all of them. The doors refused to close. She peeked into the hallway, looked left, looked right. Then something changed. Her movements grew frantic. Her hands twisted in ways that didn't make sense. She backed into the corner, pressed herself against the wall, then stepped out again, as if she was hiding, as if she was running. Then she was gone, and days later, her body was found in a place that no one could explain. Was it an accident? A crime? Something else? The police closed the case. The hotel moved on. But the questions remained, because when people look at that footage, when they see Eleanor's final moments, one thing is clear. She wasn't alone. Eleanor Fay was never meant to be a mystery. She was a storyteller, not a story. 23 years old, restless, curious, a girl who saw the world as something to be captured. Through words, through photographs, through fleeting moments on a page. She had spent months planning this trip. Her blog, a quiet corner of the internet, documented it all. Train tickets booked in advance, handwritten lists of must-see places, a carefully budgeted plan that left just enough room for spontaneity. She wasn't running from anything. If anything, she was chasing something, a feeling, an experience, a version of herself she hadn't met yet. But she had her struggles, the kind she didn't always talk about, the kind that sat in the background, unspoken but present. A mind that ran faster than she could control, nights where sleep refused to come, mornings where the world felt just slightly off. Anxiety, they called it, something she carried, something she tried to manage, and for the most part, she did. Her family worried. That was their job. Traveling alone, staying in cheap hotels, moving from city to city with no one to watch her back. But Eleanor wasn't reckless. She checked in with them. She sent messages, photos, little notes that said, "I'm fine. I love you. Don't worry." And then one day, she stopped. Her last message was short. "I love you. Talk soon." They waited for the follow-up. It never came. At first, they thought it was nothing. A missed call, a dead phone battery, a late-night arrival that had turned into a deep sleep. They told themselves there were 100 reasons she hadn't answered. Then a day passed, then 2. Then they saw the news. A body found, a name they recognized. And suddenly, Eleanor Fay wasn't just a girl on an adventure. She was something else entirely. A question with no answer. A face frozen in time. A life that had been cut short in a way that made no sense. Her parents replayed those last messages over and over. They read her old blog posts, searching for something, anything, that might explain what had happened. But nothing did. Because there was no warning, no sign, no final entry that hinted at what was coming. Just a young woman in a hotel, sending one last message before disappearing into the unknown. Eleanor checked into Blackwood Hotel on February 1st. A week's stay, one room, paid in advance. It wasn't the kind of place you'd expect someone like her to choose. Once a jewel of the city, the hotel had faded into something else entirely. Its grand chandeliers were dimmed by dust, its carpets worn thin by decades of footsteps, its reputation tangled in whispers. Strange accidents, guests who left in the middle of the night without checking out. None of it seemed to bother her. She signed her name, took her key, and disappeared down the long corridor toward the elevator. The staff remembered her, not because she stood out, but because something about her didn't. She was polite, the receptionist later recalled, but distant, like she was thinking about something else. The cleaning staff had their own version. She never wanted the room cleaned, just fresh towels left outside the door. And then there were the guests. She was in the lobby, staring at the front desk for a long time, like she was waiting for someone, but no one ever came. I saw her in the hallway. She was talking, but no one was there. February 4th, 11:47 p.m. The last known footage of Eleanor Fay. She steps into the elevator, moving quickly, like she's trying to get away from something. She presses a button. The doors remain open. She presses another, then another. The panel lights up, but the elevator doesn't move. She hesitates, turns her head toward the hallway. No one is there. She leans out, looking left, looking right. Then she steps back inside and flattens herself against the wall, just out of view. Seconds pass. She moves again, slow, careful. She steps back out into the hall, and then her hands. They rise in front of her, fingers twisting, flexing, forming shapes that don't make sense, like she's trying to communicate, like she's responding to something unseen. Then she stops, steps out of frame. The elevator doors close, and Eleanor Fay is never seen again. The morning Eleanor was supposed to check out, she didn't. Housekeeping knocked once, no answer. They knocked again, nothing. By noon, the front desk called her room. The phone rang and rang, but no one picked up. At first, they assumed she had simply left early. It wasn't unusual for guests to slip out before dawn to catch a flight or a train. But when the afternoon passed and her key was never returned, the hotel staff grew uneasy. They entered the room. The bed was made. The suitcase, neatly packed, sat untouched in the corner. Her phone charger was still plugged into the wall. A half-empty water bottle rested on the nightstand. The curtains were drawn, blocking out the city below. Everything looked normal, almost too normal. Then they noticed something missing. Her journal. The notebook she carried everywhere, the one she wrote in every night, filling its pages with plans, thoughts, and details of her journey, was gone. Nothing else was taken. Not her wallet, not her laptop, not her ID, just the journal. The hotel called her family. Her mother picked up on the first ring. "We haven't heard from Eleanor in 3 days," the manager told her. "We thought she'd checked out, but her things are still here." Silence. Then, a voice, shaking. That's not like her. By that evening, the police were called. They searched her room first, looking for any sign that something had happened. No forced entry, no broken locks, no signs of a struggle. They checked the lobby cameras, the hallways, the stairwells. The last footage of Eleanor was in the elevator. After that, she was gone. Officers went room to room, knocking, questioning guests, speaking with staff. Had anyone seen her leave? Did anyone hear anything strange? One guest, 2 doors down, paused before answering. "I don't know if it's important," she said. "But that night, I heard someone talking, a woman. I thought she was on the phone, but..." She hesitated. There were no breaks in the conversation, no pauses, just whispering. like she was speaking to someone who never answered. The police expanded their search. They combed through security footage, checking every exit, every hallway. But there was no sign of Eleanor leaving the hotel. She had vanished without a trace. The complaints started on the morning of February 9th. Guests reported weak water pressure, faucets sputtering, the showers taking too long to warm up. By noon, the front desk had received another kind of grievance. The water tastes strange, a woman on the 5th floor said. Like metal. Another call followed. It's coming out dark, almost black at first, then it clears up. The staff assured them they'd send maintenance to check the plumbing. By the afternoon, the complaints had tripled. A couple on the 7th floor refused to brush their teeth. A man from room 812 said he had been drinking from the tap all morning before realizing the taste wasn't from the pipes. It was something else. A maintenance worker, Daniel Reyes, was sent to the rooftop to inspect the hotel's main water tanks. There were 4 of them, large, industrial containers positioned near the edge of the building, secured with heavy lids. He climbed the metal ladder, reached the first tank, and checked the valves. Normal. Moved to the second. Same. The third. Then the 4th. The lid was closed, but something was off. It wasn't sealed the way it should have been. Daniel hesitated before prying it open. The smell hit him first, and then he saw it. A body. Floating face up in the dark water, hair fanned out, limbs motionless, naked, skin bloated from days of submersion. The face, what was left of it, was barely recognizable, but the hotel already knew who she was. Eleanor Fay, the guest who had checked in alone, vanished without a trace, and now was here, inside a water tank, where no one should have been. The police were called immediately. The scene was sealed off, but questions began forming before the body was even retrieved. How did she get here? The rooftop access was locked. Only employees had the keys. The water tanks were secured. The lids were heavy, too heavy for one person to lift from the inside. There were no ladders, no footprints, no sign that anyone had carried her up. No witnesses, no answers. Just a girl who had disappeared and then reappeared in a place no one could explain. The police ruled Eleanor's death an accident. They pointed to her history of anxiety, the medication in her system, the erratic behavior in the elevator footage. She must have climbed in herself, they said, but those who followed the case, the ones who studied every detail, weren't convinced, because too many things didn't add up. Was it really an accident? Eleanor's prescription was found in her room. The dosage was low, not enough to cause hallucinations. And even if she had been disoriented, how did she get to the rooftop? The door was locked. It had an alarm that never went off. The only way up was through an access point restricted to hotel employees. Even if she found her way there, how did she reach the tank? The structure was elevated, with no built-in ladders. The lid was heavy, requiring force to move. And the most haunting question of all, why would she take off her clothes? Some argued that hypothermia could cause disorientation, leading people to undress in extreme conditions. But the water wasn't cold enough for that. If she had climbed in voluntarily, expecting to get out, how did the lid close behind her? Was it murder? Some believed Eleanor wasn't alone on that rooftop, that someone lured her there, forced her inside, and left her to drown. But if that were true, why was there no evidence? No scratches, no bruises, no signs of a struggle, no DNA under her nails, no witnesses who saw her leave the hotel with anyone. The police ruled out foul play almost immediately, but skeptics pointed to another detail, how quickly they dismissed the case. It was closed within weeks. No further investigation, no suspects. Just a final statement, accidental drowning. Or was it something else? The Blackwood Hotel had a reputation long before Eleanor arrived. Guests had reported strange experiences for decades. Whispers in empty hallways, doors unlocking by themselves, shadows moving where no one should be. Some never made it out. At least 3 suicides had occurred on the premises in the last 10 years. A man was found hanging in his room. A woman had jumped from the rooftop. Another guest left a note before vanishing. His body was never found. Locals warned travelers to stay away. Some believed the hotel itself was cursed. Then, there was Eleanor's elevator footage. The way she moved, her hesitation, the way she peered into the hallway as if expecting something to follow. The way her hands twisted in unnatural gestures, as if she was speaking to something no one else could see. Some claimed she was possessed, that the Blackwood Hotel had taken another victim. And then, there was one final question, the thing that no one could explain. Her journal. It was never found. To this day, no one knows where it went, or what she wrote on her final night. The case was closed. The official statement was clear. Eleanor Fay had drowned. There was no crime, no suspect, no further questions. But not everyone accepted that answer, because the more people looked, the more unsettling things became. The missing time. The elevator footage, the last known images of Eleanor, had gaps. Frames were missing. Experts analyzed the timestamps. Nearly a full minute had been erased. The hotel never explained why. What was removed? What did someone not want the world to see? The vanishing journal. Her family begged for her belongings. They received her suitcase, her clothes, even her half-finished novel. But her journal, where she recorded her private thoughts, wasn't there. She had written in it daily, pages filled with her travels, her dreams, her fears. Yet when investigators searched, it was gone. Had she hidden it, or had someone taken it? And if so, what was inside that someone didn't want revealed? The shadows of Blackwood Hotel. The hotel has never spoken publicly about Eleanor's death, but in the years since, guests have reported things. One woman claimed she woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of water dripping. There was no sink nearby, no leaking pipes, only the closet. When she opened it, her clothes were soaked. Another guest, staying in the room Eleanor had rented, left after only one night. He said he felt watched, that every time he turned his back, he heard breathing just behind him. But when he looked, no one was there. Final questions. No one can say for certain what happened to Eleanor. Some believe the official story, an accident, nothing more. Others insist there was something else, something that followed her that night, something that made sure the truth would never be known. Her case is closed, but the mystery isn't over. Because even now, travelers who check into the Blackwood Hotel sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and find wet footprints on the floor, leading from the bathroom to the bed. What do you think happened to Eleanor Fay? Was it a tragic accident, a crime that was covered up, or something far more unsettling? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the world is full of mysteries, and some are closer than you think.